My name is Walter Fleming, and it is an honor to be here, particularly since I know so many of you, and it's just a joy to see you again. Hi, and Ryan and Christy are my wife's cousins, and so many of you are colleagues, and past and present. So it's just a real honor to be here and a delight. I will say that I spent a great deal of time at Pilgrim Congregational before you moved here. You were also over there, and it was certainly an honor to have that shared building, and I'm very pleased to note that you're here. One of those rather interesting ironies of growing up in small town Montana is that 2 doors down from here is we lived, I can't remember exactly when, but probably about 2000. Well, anyhow, I can't remember, which is another challenge of growing older. But at any rate, just several doors down. My name in the Kickapoo language, of which I'm a member, is Wasasuk, and that means light lying down. And I'm a member of the White Bear Clan. So if there are any White Bear Clan members out there, raise your hand. There never is, but if you were, you can buy me breakfast later. That narrows down the crowd. I will apologize for doing this. That is, I have to start my clock because my life, well, maybe not. My life begins and ends on a 50-hour lecture. So I know that we don't want to do that today. So I am going to set this for 4 hours, and we'll see how it works out. I was asked to include a land acknowledgement, and I have one. I was asked many years ago now in an email if I would mind sharing our land acknowledgement. And the first thing I did was looked up what the heck a land acknowledgement was, because these are rather new creatures. We haven't had land acknowledgements as a part of any presentations until I think the last 10 years or so. And so I spent a great deal of time trying to imagine what a land acknowledgement might be. And so I went to the internet, as we all do, and stole liberally from there and found a couple that I thought resonated with me. And so I did construct one. And the one here in the valley has particular challenges. And I want to express those challenges, I guess, before I read that to you. One of which is that it becomes tempting to read a land acknowledgement and be done with it, as if that was the preface to getting to what we really want to do. And so at a conference, it's oftentimes, let's do the acknowledgement and then we'll introduce the speaker. And I never wanted it to be that way. The second challenge is that this valley is the home of a lot of different peoples at a lot of different times. And so it's challenging to try to name those specific tribes, as there are many. And we can look at some of the contemporary tribes like the Zorga, the Crow, or the Siksika, the Blackfeet, the Salish, the Flathead, or the Shoshone. And we risk leaving people out and hearing about it, as I have found out. People will correct you very, very quickly. The other part about that is that this is contested territory. We have tribes who fought for control over this land, and we recognize that can be a divisive element. And the last thing about the land acknowledgement is that it's actually not acknowledging the land. And we need to recognize what we want to do is acknowledge the people. And that's what we want to put up front. And not just the people that was here, but the people who are here. And so the land acknowledgement becomes extremely important as a statement for a lot of reasons. And so then one of the odd parts about my particular land acknowledgement, and when I tell people this is my land acknowledgement, it's really just to give them a sense of what things they might be thinking about in the construction of their own. And that's what I tell people when they want to know, well, what does your land acknowledgement look like? Here's mine. Create your own. Make it yourself. Make it yours. And what makes mine different is I acknowledge that we're not alone in our physical selves, and that is that Native peoples recognize that there are other folks that are sitting in these chairs that we need to acknowledge as well. And so with that, now I only have 3 hours left. I want to share my land acknowledgement. We acknowledge and honor with respect the indigenous nations on whose traditional homelands this building stands, and whose, I can't see that far, and whose history and cultural relationships to the land continue to this day. We ask the spiritual ancestors to forgive our intrusion and humbly ask for their guidance. I've been asked to talk a little bit about Thanksgiving, and so I've prepared some thoughts to share with you. And the first thought is that I want to distinguish between Thanksgiving and giving thanks. And it's those two perspectives that I think are challenging, because I'm truly conflicted by Thanksgiving. As a Packers fan, I enjoy watching the game on Thanksgiving Day, and as somebody who enjoys eating, there's that part of it. And I will share that Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday, and I know that there are people who would wonder about that, who would say, why is that your favorite holiday? And I just told you, Packers and food. But then I think people have this other expectation that because I am American Indian or Native or Indigenous, depending upon your view, that I must dislike Thanksgiving because of its sordid past, as sometimes we call it. And I think in part the explanation may well be, well, I guess I've been colonized, and so I'm speaking as a colonized person. But that conflict, I think, is real. I grew up in the 1960s, 50s. I'll stop there. At a time when we never considered Thanksgiving or Columbus Day, other than what they were at that time. And so I remember November was the month where in our curriculum, in our schools, there was the only mention of Native peoples. And that was when we cut out paper mache hats out of black construction paper and glued buckles on. Pilgrims tended to put buckles on everything. They put buckles on hats, and they put buckles on shoes, and buckles on belt buckles. And so I did that. And we all did that, people of a certain age, Dick. We all did that because that was Thanksgiving. That was the Pilgrims. And I don't know that I ever thought any differently about the holiday. except to note that my hand turkey was probably lopsided all the time. Um, and, and, uh, and so the construction paper headdress that I made, we all did that, but never thought about it. And it's only been recently that we have. And so Thanksgiving was always that day or that week when Native peoples were acknowledged. And now I don't know how to feel about that, because November is now Native American Heritage Month. And so I still have to deal with November being Indian time, when we can recognize that Native peoples exist in this world. And so that's part of the conflict. And the other part of the conflict is knowing that there are two myths at play, perhaps contradictory myths that are challenging to resolve. And one is that this holiday recognizes when two cultures came together and shared a meal and shared goodness and shared, and we know, I suppose, historically that is a myth, that's not what happened. And there are people who would want this to be a national day of mourning, because it perhaps commemorates a massacre that occurred at the time in the 1620s when those kinds of things happened. And so that's the conflict, is that the more we talk about it, the more stories, the more realities that we're given. And so it becomes a challenge then to try to figure out, now, how am I supposed to feel about that? Well, in one sense, the Thanksgiving that we know from popular literature, at least from our youth, those aren't us, as I grew up recognizing. These are some other people. These are not the Native peoples that I knew. These were not the folks on the Northern Cheyenne Reservation where I grew up. And so in some ways, that was a part of the distancing that I felt growing up to this holiday, and perhaps it's the reason why I don't feel that tension of recognizing it in some sort of other historical truth. And so here I am trying to figure out then how I should frame this holiday. And so I rather like the philosophy, if you will, or at least the position from a gentleman by the name of Sean Sherman. He has been a frequent visitor to Bozeman and to MSU. Sean Sherman, a lot of alliteration there. Chef Sean Sherman, the shoe chef. Sous chef, S-I-O-U-X, sous chef. And I rather like the way he frames Thanksgiving. He says, remember when we sit down at that table, and we're not replicating an event from the historic past, and we're not looking at its truth or its myth. What we're looking at as we're sitting across from each other is what's between us: turkey, yams, cranberries, potatoes. I don't know about yams. Wild rice. What we need to celebrate is those gifts that South, North, Central America, the peoples of the America gave to this world. And that's perhaps the meaning of Thanksgiving, is that those foods that have now been shared worldwide. See, I got stuck with the Sean Sherman stuff. But those foods that were shared are what we are thankful for, because those are the things that nourish us, and those are the things that keep us alive. Well, that's one aspect. That's the Thanksgiving part. So what about the giving thanks part? And I rather like a saying that has oftentimes been attributed to Tecumseh, but I don't think it's him. And it goes like this, and you may have heard it. When you arise in the morning, give thanks for the morning light. Give thanks for your life, and give thanks for your strength. Give thanks for your food and for the joy of living. And if you see no reason for giving thanks, rest assured the fault is in yourself. And I appreciate that for several reasons, one of which is its beginning. When you arise in the morning, give thanks. It's not the third Thursday of November. It's when you arise in the morning, give thanks. And I think that's what we really mean when we talk about Thanksgiving. The second part that I like is, if you see no reason for giving thanks, the fault is in yourself. If we have to look for a reason to give thanks, that says a great deal about ourselves. And that's one of the reasons why our lodges are facing the east and our ceremonial structures are facing the east, is to remind us that we begin our day with supplication, with prayer, with acknowledging the supernatural, however one frames that, the Creator. And so one of the things that I appreciate about being able to come here today is to share with you how perhaps one can give thanks. And it's a ceremony called the Sweat Lodge. And it's one that I engage in at times. Because what it is it's a ceremony that is one of rebirth. And so you enter in to the lodge, a conical shaped structure with tarp and with blankets on. And you put inside heated rocks. And then you pour water over those rocks. And it produces a steam. And you're lying, you're sitting on the earth. And so what it brings is all of those elements together: the earth, the wind, the fire, and the water. And so it's a ceremony not just of purification, which it is. It's cleansing both the psychic as well as the physical self. But it's a ceremony of thanks, a profound ceremony of thanks, because when you go in, you pour water on the rocks and it produces a steam, and you suffer a little bit, and not very much, just enough to make it make you grateful that it's over. But I'm somewhat teasing there, but we're asked to suffer a little bit, because then we can be thankful, not for the door to open, but for the ability to feel that pain as little as it is. We're also told that when we're there, we should think of others. And that's one thing that I was always told growing up, is that you don't pray for yourself. You pray for other people. And if you are in distress, you tell somebody, "I'd like you to pray for me." But you don't pray for yourself. And what that does, I suppose, at a the psychological level, is that you've shared your distress. And so perhaps that's it. But it's also putting yourself in a different sense of self, a different sense of place. And so the ceremony, there's 4 phases to it. You pour 4 dipperfuls of water onto the rocks, symbolic of the 4 ages of humanity: infancy, adulthood, young adulthood, and old age. And by that sacred 4 number, you're bringing in the supernatural into that context. The next time you pour water onto the rocks, you pour 7. And the number 7, again, a sacred number. The 4 directions, north, south, east, and west, plus the earth, and plus the sky. And the 7th is where you are. And so that's the orientation that you have. The number 10 is the 4th round. And the number 10 is the ceremony of thanks, or the aspect of thanks that we express to the women in our lives, because the number 10 represents the months in utero that we are as we've been given life. And so we give thanks for our grandmothers, our mothers, our aunties, our wives, our children, our daughters. And the last one, you don't count. You pour dipperfuls, and you simply don't count those, because when you open up that door for the last time and go out, you want those wishes, those prayers to continue on forever. And the last thing that you do is you ask Creator that if you've made any mistakes, to correct them, because we know that we are human, and we know that we can make mistakes. But Creator, being omnipotent and all-powerful, can fix those. And so, I'd like to leave you by repeating that Tecumseh statement. When you arise in the morning, give thanks for the morning light. Give thanks for your life and your strength. Give thanks for your food and for the joy of living. And if you see no reason for giving thanks, rest assured the fault lies in yourself. Thank you very much.